Hey everybody, it's Glenn back in this video as I continue to count down to the release of X-Men Apocalypse. Not by reviewing the action figures from the movie, however, as there ain't none. But instead I'm taking characters from the movie, in this instance Quicksilver, and handpicking a previous action figure incarnation of that character. It's a toy rewind! Taking us back to 2007's Marvel Legends Blob series Quicksilver, which as we look at the rest of the series was also home to the X-Men Last Stand's Jean Grey. Yep, that was back before Disney purchased Marvel, when X-Men movies still got action figures. Now in my opinion, the lack of X-Men movie action figures, and pretty much any merchandise from X-Men Apocalypse in fact, is down to the tricky movie rights issue between Fox and Disney. Tricky as in Fox have them, Disney want them. And just like any toddler that don't get what they want, they're pounding the ground, screaming in the form of strong-arming licensees into not capitalizing on Fox's Marvel movies. But that said, due to a strange joint custody of characters that straddle both the X-Men and Avengers, Quicksilver also appeared alongside his sister in Disney's Age of Ultron. Not that from that inclusion the character really benefited from action figures though, and as we look back to the one we have here, it renders Quicksilver in a very classic form, and if this costume is a tree, the apple don't fall too far from it. As well, he's had various costumes over the years. Most are either variations of this or get passed over quickly for some form of this classic look, which hopefully is what happens to his current comic costume, which sees him wear a fast forward button on his chest. I guess with that, even the most moronic comic reader, and I use reader loosely here in that they're likely not reading the speech bubbles and just looking at the pretty pictures, seeing the fast forward symbol and they're like, oh, he runs fast. For me, my favourite costume is this, which he wore around the late 90s, and it's a costume I liked enough to make my own Quicksilver custom of him wearing it. But of this blue version, a variant in green was also available, no doubt a tribute to his earliest appearances, such as his very first one, pictured here on the front cover of X-Men #4 way back in 1964. Oh, look at him stood in the back, typically bored looking and so over being there. The Blob series was only Hasbro's second series of Legends since they took over the line from Toy Biz, and in many ways it's typical of the penny pinching, budget cutting of many of the excesses of Toy Biz's Legends. So in the deco, no highlighting or shading whatsoever, making him appear flat and well really quite plastic looking. A positive one could say is that at least the lightning bolt deco has been applied crisply, and beyond the low budget deco I have a hunch the character selection itself was budgetary. I often feel that Hasbro select many a character based on which ones can be rendered as a deco and a new head on a previously sculpted and budgeted body, and here this is one that they didn't even budget for themselves. It's Bullseye back from the Toy Biz days. But I won't complain too much there, as at the height of my customizing, the relatively blankness of this body and the fact that the Blob series ended up on clearance at dirt cheap prices made it a cost-effective blank canvas to flexibly transform into many a different character. But as a reuse, this is a logical one, as Quicksilver is typically drawn as slender relative to your typical super jacked superhero body. Taking a closer look, and he is of course rocking his signature do, which I assume the speed at which he runs styles his hair into those two wispy points. And in the face, I like the arching eyebrows. Beyond that, the face sculpt is a bit too neutral. As such, I don't think it really captures the spirit of the character, which, having read plenty of Quicksilver, I imagine him to constantly wear a look of rolling his eyes with frustration at a world and everybody in it moving infinitely slower than he does. But that's my standard, but really, this one isn't too bad. I'd say serviceable at best. Now looking at articulation, and his head rotates side to side. He has a neck hinge, so he's able to look down this much, and then he's able to look up this far. At the shoulder, his arm rotates, and then the arm also hinges up this far. There's upper arm rotation, followed by a double jointed elbow. There's rotation at the top of his white glove there. Then at the wrists, his hands are hinged, moving down and up, and in addition to that, his fingers are also articulated. Additionally, he has an armpit or butterfly joint as it's often referred, and that moves the arm backwards and forwards. He has waist rotation, then an ab crunch, which crunches pretty far forward. He's like, is that a penny I see? And then it doesn't crunch too far back though. At the hips, his legs move out to the side this much, then to move them forward requires some finagling of the ball joint of the hip. It moves that far forward, and then it moves this far back. There's upper leg rotation, followed by a double jointed knee, then there's rotation again at the top of his white boots there, and then his feet are hinged at the ankle, moving backwards and forwards. He has an ankle pivot, then like his fingers, his toes are also articulated. And here, taking advantage of that articulation, I've struck him in a pose in keeping with his superhuman speed. For a figure that next year will turn 10, I think that's been long enough and he's significant enough a character to justify a second go around in Legends. As for the movie incarnations, with the character's demise in Age of Ultron and the frostiness between Fox and Disney, I wouldn't hold your breath for an action figure of either of those. Anyway, speaking of movie incarnations, click this video for Gene! Hit that thumbs up with all the speed of Quicksilver, and I hope to see you next time. Bye.